And welcome back to Backspace Academy. In this practical lab, we're going to introduce you to the messaging services of AWS, and then we'll just have a very quick exercise in using the Amazon Simple Email service to send an email. In the messaging category, we have Simple Queue Service, or SQS, and that is a serverless service for decoupling our applications from demand. What I mean by that is, for example, if we have an application that is processing messages or whatever it's doing, we can use the Simple Queue service as a queue in front of our application. So if that application all of a sudden receives a massive amount of demand, those requests for processing will go into the queue, and they will be built up in the queue until such time as our processing server is able to process that and reduce the queue size. So it's effectively decoupling our application from the demand by putting a queue in front of it, just the same as you would have a queue at the shopping centre or a queue at your local bank. The same concept. The next one there is Simple Notification Service, and that provides publish and subscribe messaging. And the way it works is that you would create a SNS topic and you would publish a message to that SNS topic. And anyone who is subscribed to that topic will receive that message. It can also be used for mobile push notifications. For example, if you would like to send from your application push notifications to an iPhone or to Android devices, you can do that through the SNS service. And finally, there we have the Simple Email service, which, as the name says, is for providing bulk delivery of email. So let's have a look at a process decoupling example. So on the right there, we've got some instances. And so those instances are processing messages as they come in. Now, if we have a situation where we have a massive spike in demand and we have a whole heap of messages coming in at once, then that would most likely crash our EC2 servers, which is something that we don't want to happen. So to decouple the demand from our process, we can put an SQS queue in front of those EC2 instances. So what that will do is that the messages will come in, and if there's a big spike of messages coming in, they will just build up into the queue until such time as the EC2 instances, they can just go through and process those. And the way they would do that is that the EC2 instances would poll the queue to see if there are any messages in the queue, and it will process those messages, and then after it's finished processing that message, it will delete it from the queue. And so all of a sudden we can handle these irregularities in our demand without crashing our EC2 instances. But that said, that is not really a perfect solution, because we could have a situation where we just didn't have enough capacity in our processing instances to handle the average demand. And when we have a situation like that, the SQS queue will just grow and grow and grow indefinitely into such point that the SQS queue becomes overloaded and crashes. So we don't want that to happen. So what we can do is we can use an auto-scaling group, and we can launch our instances within an auto-scaling group, and we can have a CloudWatch metric from the CloudWatch service that can trigger an alarm to scale out or scale in. To scale out by adding instances to increase our processing capacity, or scale in by reducing instances and reducing our processing capacity. And by doing that, we are going to have an optimized solution, an optimized from performance and optimized from cost as well. So the way we would do that is that we could set up a CloudWatch metric that would be based upon the length of the SQS queue. So if we get to a point where the SQS queue builds up too much, then we can have an alarm that triggers an auto-scaling event to scale out and add instances to our auto-scaling group. But at the same time, we don't want too many instances when the demand goes down. So we can set a lower set point that will trigger a CloudWatch alarm when the queue is empty for a significant amount of time, and then we can set that to as an alarm to the auto-scaling group, and the auto-scaling group will reduce the number of instances. So that way we are not only managing spikes of demand, we are also matching from a long-term perspective the performance of our instances and the capacity of our process. We're matching that really very well to our demand, and it's going to give us the best performance and the lowest cost solution. Now that said, what happens if, for example, we've made an update to our application code and it has a bug in it and it's not processing those messages properly? In a situation like that, it doesn't matter how many instances we add, the SQS queue will still continue to grow because the messages just aren't being processed because there's a bug in the application code. So we can set an even higher set point in our CloudWatch metrics. So when the SQS queue gets really high, we can have that send an email notification to our administrator, and we can use the SNS service to do that. It will send a notification as an email, and then our administrator can come in and investigate the problem. And so that's what we talk about with a process decoupling service or a process decoupling architecture, and it's quite common that we would use something like that with AWS. In the AWS Management Console, we go to Services, and over on the right hand side here we've got Messaging Services. We click on SES. And the first thing we need to do is that we need to verify our email address. So we just go to Email Addresses, and we'll put in we click on here to verify a new email address. And then we click on Verify this email address. So what's happened now is that AWS has sent an email to us to verify our email. Once we click on that link, we'll be able to continue to use the SES service. Okay, so when you've clicked on the verification link to the email, you'll get a congratulations message that you've verified your email. So just click out of that and go back into the SES Management Console. If we refresh the screen, we can see that it has now been verified. So what we can do now is we can send a test email. So just click on Send a Test Email. We'll put in, what I'm going to do is just send a message from myself to myself so that I don't have to verify any further or any additional email addresses, and just put the subject as test. Let's copy that over, and we'll send that test email, and that will be happening. And so what we can do is we'll go into our email account and we'll see that that test email will have been sent. Okay, so I've just gone and checked my email account, and yes, that test email went through fine. Now, you might be questioning, what do we do now? It's one thing to send a single email, but that's not much good to us. We want to send out bulk email. Now, obviously, sending out bulk email it can be spam. So AWS are mindful of that, and so there is a process that you have to go through to apply to use the SES service to send out bulk email. So the way you do that is you go into just go into sending statistics here, and you can see there is a link there to request a sending limit increase. So just reading off there, so your Amazon SES account has sandbox access in region US East Virginia. And so that is very limited to what you can do. And so if you're going to be using this for example, in an enterprise application, then you would want to go there and request a sending limit increase. And so just click on that, and it'll take you to a form that you fill out with all your details, and you just submit that to the AWS support department, and they will make that happen for you. So that's all I need to show you now on the SES service, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.